Story 1. Alex didn't plan to be a driver all the time. 2 years back, he had an office job with a good view. Now he was 43, always smelling like old coffee, driving the dark streets of San Francisco at 2 a.m., looking for a high fare that hardly ever came. His car, a Honda Civic he called the debt collector, in his head, did not feel like his own space anymore. It was just a cold box for work, lit up by his phone, the map showing where to go, and the money screen showing what he was worth. Tonight was bad. The rain was heavy. The riders were either too drunk or too quiet, and their trips were never worth the gas. He had driven 8 hours. His eyes hurt, his neck was stiff, and the only thing keeping him going was the low number on his earnings page, $87. He needed $150 minimum to pay his rent. He pulled into a parking spot. He was about to press go home, when a message flashed, very bright, very long trip. Hey. Hi. The map showed the pickup at a nice hotel nearby. But the drop-off line went far away, past Oakland, past Sacramento, into the dark mountains. It would take 5 hours in all, but the pay was almost $300. It was a risky, bad idea, but it was the only way to get the money and sleep for 2 full nights. He hit accept. The name on the screen was just Thorne. The pickup was quiet, almost too easy. The man waiting outside was not like the usual drunk riders. He was tall, wearing a black suit that looked fresh. He had no bags, just a thin, leather book under his arm. He opened the back door and slid in, moving with a calm quickness that felt odd for 2:15 a.m. Alex, right. Thanks for taking this trip. I know it's late. The voice was soft, rough, and kind, like someone used to getting what they want. He sounded old, maybe 60, but his face was hard to see in the dim light. His eyes, though, were bright and strange. No problem, Mr. Thorne. It's a long drive. Are you sure about this address? Alex asked, driving onto the road. Very sure, Alex. It must be done. And please, just call me Thorne. Alex checked the app. The route was already strange. It sent them off the main road and onto small, dark roads quickly. The time kept jumping around. 4 hours, then 5, then 2 hours, then 6. The computer seemed to fight itself. I'm following the directions, but it's taking us through very quiet areas. Are you in a hurry? Alex tried to sound calm. Thorne gave a short, dry laugh, like paper crunching. A hurry? No, Alex. We have all the time we need. Time is not a fixed thing where we are going. Don't you think that's the big lie of your job? Saying you know exactly when you will get there. Alex made a face, holding the wheel tighter. It's just a computer program, Thorne. It will fix itself. Ah, the computer program, Thorne said softly, leaning forward a little. Alex smelled something from the back seat. Not spray, but something like electric shock and old paper. The program tells you everything now, doesn't it? Where you go, what you earn, and most of all, when you rest. The highway soon became the night. The roads were real roads, but the world outside felt wrong. The woods looked too thick, the hills too tall, not like the real California wilds. He drove in silence for an hour. All he heard was the rain and Thorne's quiet breathing. Alex tried to think about the big money. He could pay the gas bill, the late fee, maybe buy his partner, Sarah, a nice gift. You're thinking about money, aren't you, Alex? Thorne said at once, his soft voice now sharp, cutting the quiet. Alex jumped. Just thinking about the road, Thorne. Keeping my eyes open. Of course. But you are thinking about the price tag on this trip. That big number that makes you look at the bright phone instead of the road ahead, or the road you passed just now? I am looking at the road, Alex said, upset. He was tired of these mind games. Are you, though? Thorne asked. Because we just went past that same gas station, didn't we? The one with the broken light that blinks, open. Alex felt sick. He drove faster, trying to find a reason. No, they all look the same out here. Do they? Thorne asked. The same red truck parked under the light. The same 3 trees in the back, one split by lightning. I promise you, Alex, we passed that exact spot 17 minutes ago. You even thought about it then, in your mind. Something about the truck never moving. Alex swallowed. He did think that. He clearly thought that. He quickly looked in the mirror, but Thorne's face was hidden in the dark. The directions are broken, Alex said, his voice weak. We should be near Placerville, but the app says we are still in Martinez. Thorne sighed, sounding a bit let down. The app is not broken, Alex. It's just showing you the truth of where you are. You are in the loop, now. The loop happens when you go too far. When you drive past the point where your mind can tell what is real and what is just tiredness. That's crazy talk. I'm tired, yes, but I'm not seeing things. I need to stop the car. No, you don't, Thorne ordered, his soft voice suddenly hard and metal. Stopping will only mean you lose the money. A 1-star review. Think of the ratings, Alex. Think of the cash. We are so near the end. Alex looked at the fare screen. The map was now a wild, turning mix of red and blue lines, like blood vessels breaking open. The words below the rating, which usually showed the price, now showed a single, turning phrase in red letters: the price of working is never just cash. He tried to press the call help button. His finger hit the screen again and again, but the app was stuck. He picked up his own phone, the one not running the Uber app, and tried to call Sarah. Connecting. Await. Then, instead of a phone ring or Sarah's sleepy voice, a sound. A low, machine noise that shook the steering wheel. And then, a voice, but not Sarah's. It was Thorne's, mixed with other, machine whispers. She is sleeping, Alex. Dreaming of a life where the rent is paid. Don't wake her with this truth. She would not understand the rules of the job. Alex dropped the phone. It hit the floor. Thorne had broken into his life. He was inside his space. Who are you? Alex yelled, his voice shaking. I am what happens because of the high price, Alex. The last stop for the driver who won't quit. I am the one who takes the payment you owe to yourself. Alex slammed the brakes hard. The car tires yelled on the wet road. Thorne did not move in the back seat. Get out of my car, now. The trip is done. Thorne laughed again, that dry, crunching sound. But the end is not reached, Alex. And the rules for the money were clear. The pay is only given when we arrive. You need the money, don't you? You cannot give up the pay for this trip. It's the highest rate you have ever seen, right? Think of the cut. Alex looked at the fare screen, which was now flashing fast. The first $300 price was gone, replaced by a massive, unreal number, $9,999.99. It was a bright red number, a dream of money. It's a fault. Alex shouted, grabbing the screen. Is it? Thorne replied, calm. Or is that the real cost? The true worth of the last 8 hours of your life, going on forever. Start driving, Alex, or you won't get paid. The need for the money, the deep, bad need to fix his problems with one huge effort, was stronger than the fear. Alex's sense of reason, tired and beaten, gave way to the rule of the job. Drive the rider, get the money, and then deal with the madness. He let go of the brake and hit the gas. The car shot forward. The road changed right away. It was not black asphalt now. It looked like shiny, black rock, very smooth, reflecting the middle line like a bright stripe going into the dark. The thick woods on the sides were gone, replaced by endless, same-looking concrete walls going up into the blackness. "Where are we?" Alex whispered. "We are on the space road, Alex. The space between the stops. You've been here before, right? Those times when you drove a mile, but your mind felt stuck in time. Every driver who ignores their body's cries for rest finds this highway. The highway of having to work." Alex checked the time. He started the trip at 2:15 a.m. It felt like they had driven forever, through the gas station loop, the call, the stop. He looked at the car clock. 2:30 a.m. 15 minutes, Alex breathed. "Ah, time," Thorne said, happy. "A human rule. You have gone hundreds of miles in your real world, Alex. But in mine, you've just started the meter. Drive faster. The end place needs effort." Alex's foot was heavy on the gas. They were moving very fast, the yellow line a solid beam. He knew if he crashed, it would not just be death, it would be ending. "What is the end place, Thorne?" "The end place is the spot where the trip never stops. The point of no return. The address I gave you is not a building, Alex. It is a time marker. A join point. You are taking me from one world of being tired to another. And when I step out, you, the driver, must take my spot as the car." Thorne leaned close, his face briefly showing in the mirror. His face was not quite human. The lines were too sharp, the skin too clean, the eyes like two white lights. He looked like a very neat, fake person. "Think of the money you owe, Alex," Thorne hissed, the sound like metal grinding. "The debt you owe to the system that lets you live. You trade your hours, your sleep, your health, for a promise of safety. I am here to take the payment, your very self." Alex was crying now, silent tears mixing with the sweat. He felt a deep sense of knowing. This was not just a ghost story. It was the horror of working for the big machine. The gig job had found its true form. A bad spirit who checks the books. He looked at the speed screen. It was past 120 miles per hour, but the only motion he felt was the deep beat of the car, which now sounded less like a machine and more like a heart trying to push against concrete. He looked out the side window. The concrete walls were gone. Now, they were driving through a huge, quiet warehouse. Row after row of shelves, going up into the black roof, holding millions of the exact same brown boxes. "What is this place?" "This, Alex, is the things kept. The big engine of human effort. Every box, every promise, every bad wish is kept here. Look closely at the boxes." Alex strained his eyes. On the side of the box closest to him, written in bright light, was a name: Alexander P. Cross. He read the smaller words below the name. Inside, 2 years of holidays he didn't take. Inside, the ring he never bought for his fiancée. Inside, the sound of his father's voice. Dozens of boxes, all with his name, piled up 10 floors high. The weight of his life he didn't live, stored away by the system he worked for. The computer wanted fast work, Alex. We make life better by storing the parts that slow you down. The warehouse started to shake. The car kept moving, fast and straight. "The end is near," Thorne said, sounding very happy. The road in front twisted into a wild mix of light and dark, and then, with a hard shake that threw Alex into his seatbelt, they shot out of the dark and onto a small, high place. The air was still, heavy, and very cold. The place was made of the same black rock road, and it hung over an endless, gray drop. In the middle of the place, the final stop, was a building. It was a toll booth, but it was huge, like a stone block, and silent. Its window was black glass, and above it, where the fee sign should be, was the Uber logo, shining like a cruel star. Alex's car stopped exactly on the white line. End reached. The app yelled in green letters. Payment. $9,999.99. Thorne opened his door. The air that rushed in was freezing, dry, and smelled lightly of battery acid. "My stop," Thorne said, stepping out onto the black ground. He turned back, the white lights in his eyes burning. "Now for the other half of the deal, Alex." Alex stared, his hands locked on the wheel. "The fare is paid. I finished the trip. The app says so." "The fare is paid, yes. But the app needs a driver for the next trip, Alexander. Someone to take my spot, to pick up those who refuse to log off. I've been driving this road for 100 years. I am so tired, even for one who checks the books like me. I need someone new." Thorne pointed to the toll booth. "The car is yours. Log in, Alex. Keep the engine running. The next rider is already waiting." Alex looked past Thorne, into the black window of the booth. Through the glass, he saw movement. A bent shape, sitting in an old suit, looking out at the drop. And he knew right away, that shape was Thorne. The first Thorne. The collector before this one. A line of drivers, stuck forever, taking the impossible fare. The truth hit him. He saw the trap clearly. The lure of the money, the tiredness used as a weapon, the promise of rest that never came. He was about to give up his soul for $10,000 that was not real. He looked down at the app, which was counting down, 5 o'clock. 4:59. A self-destruct. If he didn't log in, he would lose the money and be stuck. If he did log in, he would become Thorne. "No," Alex whispered. "Excuse me?" Thorne asked, leaning his head. "I said no. I don't want the money. You can keep it. You can keep the trip." Alex reached for the glowing phone, his heart hitting his ribs. He did not press the login button. He dragged his finger across the top, pulling down the phone's simple menu. He quickly found the Uber driver app icon, and held it down. "Remove app." Thorne let out a loud, machine scream that cut through the cold air. "You cannot. The deal is forever. The computer rule is the highest rule. It's just code." Alex screamed back, his voice rough. He hit remove app. The world exploded in a silent flash of digital light. The number $9,999.99 burned itself into his eyes. Thorne vanished in a shower of tiny, square pieces, like computer dots melting. The huge toll booth shook and fell inward, pulling the world in on itself. The black ground broke apart. Alex felt a crushing drop, a sickening fall that lasted a long time, followed by a hard hit. Alex woke up with a loud breath, his head hitting the backrest. The car was stopped. The airbag did not open, but the engine was shaking. The sun was coming up, a sickly yellow light through a heavy mist. He was parked on the side of a highway, I-80, near Sacramento, driving west. He knew the spot. It was a normal, boring highway. He looked at the car clock, 6:45 a.m. He had driven for almost 4.5 hours, but the memory of the crazy trip felt like a week. He slowly turned his head to the back seat. Empty. No Thorne. Just the usual, dirty seats. He checked the phone holder. His own phone was on the floor, totally dead. The Uber phone also died, but when he plugged it in, it turned on right away. He opened the app with shaking hands. The trip history was clean. No trip to Sacramento. No $9,999.99. No Thorne. But there was a new entry at the very bottom, at 2:15 a.m. Status. Being looked at. Payment, $0. Cancel reason. Driver said no at the end place. He looked at the words, the final insult. He had lost the money. But he had gotten his life back. Alex pulled the car fully to the side, his whole body shaking. He was sick on the road. When he was done, he sat back, cleaned his mouth, and looked at the car. The car was fine, mostly. But the back paint, along the bumper and trunk, was scratched, not by the road, but by something fine and rough. It was covered in a thick layer of gray powder, dust. Dust of black rock. He reached into the back seat, moving his hand over the cushion where Thorne sat. His fingers touched something small, hard, and cold. He pulled it out. It was a tiny, black, square chip. A memory card. Alex knew what it was. A real piece of the bad app, a broken part of the system. He threw it out the window, watching it land in the tall grass. Alex drove straight home, canceled his next shift, and logged out of the app forever. He found a new, lower-paying job 2 weeks later, but it had normal hours. He and Sarah were still struggling with money, but they were doing better, slowly, through real, steady work. He never drove for Uber again. But sometimes, late at night, when he was in bed, trying to sleep, he would hear a sound. The soft, steady thump 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 of a window wiper cleaning wet glass. And sometimes, when he was stuck in traffic, alone in his car, he would feel a light weight in the passenger seat, a sense that someone was there. It was the weight of the next fare, the driver who refused to stop, waiting calmly for him to make one more mistake, to drive 1 hour too long. He would hold the steering wheel, his hands tight, and he would whisper to the empty back seat, to the ghost who checked the books, "Go offline. The system is off." He knew it was a lie. The system was never off. It was only waiting for the next long trip, the next tired driver who would accept the fare to the end of the line. And he knew, deep inside, that soon, his phone would buzz with a message, and the name on the screen would be his own. Fare, Alexander P. Cross. End place. Being looked at. The end. Story 2. The Midnight Grid. A novella. Leo was proud of his car. Not in the way a young man is proud of speed, but with the deep, quiet satisfaction of an artisan regarding his best tool. His vehicle was a 20-year-old black Mercedes E-Class, heavy and silent, polished to a mirror shine, with an interior of cream leather he conditioned weekly. To the Uber system, it was simply premium comfort. To Leo, it was the only constant left in his life. He called her the Countess. He was 56, divorced, and haunted by the silence of his apartment. Driving was less a job and more a form of mobile existence, a way to occupy the vast, quiet hours between midnight and dawn. In the Countess, Leo felt useful, a necessary cog in the restless, grinding mechanism of the city. He kept his ratings perfect, his routes optimized, and his schedule immutable. His routine broke on a Tuesday at 3:17 a.m. The notification arrived during the dead zone, that hour between 3 and 4 when the drunk crowds were home and the first airport runs hadn't started. The ping was unusual. A specific, high-end neighborhood address. Seacliff. Known for its sprawling, secluded mansions, and a destination listed simply as the Overlook. The passenger name was Silas. The pickup was at a gate framed by dark hedges. Mrs. Silas was waiting outside, but not impatiently. She stood utterly still, a silhouette against the fog that rolled in from the Pacific. She was small and slight, dressed in a long, dark coat that seemed to absorb the light. Leo estimated her age between 60 and timeless. She carried no phone, no purse, just a single, tarnished silver key on a thin chain. Leo stepped out of the Countess, a rare breach of his protocol, to open the door for her. "Good evening, Leo," she said, her voice a fragile, dry whisper, like dried leaves rustling across marble. She knew his name without checking the app. "Evening, ma'am. Welcome to the Countess." He gestured to the plush cream interior. "It is a lovely carriage," she murmured, and her eyes, a startling, liquid brown, looked not at the seat, but deep into the car's console, past the wood trim and the leather, as if examining its bone structure. She settled into the back seat, folding her hands neatly in her lap. The destination was about 40 minutes away, winding through the hills toward Twin Peaks, but stopping short of any recognizable street. "I'm showing the Overlook, Mrs. Silas, but the coordinates seem to end on a service road overlooking the bay." "Is there a precise landmark?" Leo asked, his voice crisp. "Just the road, Leo. It's a very old view. You will know it when the light is wrong," she replied, offering no other guidance. Leo began the drive. The moment she entered the car, the air conditioning seemed to drop by several degrees, regardless of his control. The smell started then. Faint, metallic, and sweet, like copper pennies left in old perfume. It was strangely unsettling, but he dismissed it as something clinging to her coat. They drove in near total silence. The city lights below the hills were muffled by the fog, giving the streets a lonely, underwater feeling. Leo found himself driving faster than usual, not out of haste, but driven by a strange, humming urgency he felt through the pedal. When they reached the coordinates, the road ended exactly where the GPS specified, at a small, circular turnaround paved with cracked, ancient asphalt. There was no landmark, only a low stone wall and a sheer drop leading to the unseen bay below. The fog here was blindingly thick, glowing with the strange, diffused orange of the distant streetlights. "This is it," Leo announced. Indeed. Mrs. Silas reached into her coat, but not for money or a phone. She simply extended her hand and lightly touched the cream leather door panel next to her. Her fingers left a small, dark, oily mark, a smudge of absolute blackness, that vanished instantly into the leather. "Thank you for the safe passage, Leo. You handle the Countess with such care. She appreciates it." Leo felt a sharp, electric tickle across his own back, right where he leaned against the seat. "The fare," he prompted, keeping his voice steady. "The fare is settled. You will see. It is factored into the service." She opened the door, stepped out into the fog, and was instantly gone, swallowed by the gray. Leo sat there, engine idling, for a full minute. The app confirmed the trip was over and a high payment had been received. He checked the earnings. A remarkable $120 for 40 minutes of driving. It was more than worth the strange interaction. He pulled a microfiber cloth from the center console to wipe down the seat where she sat. The scent, copper and perfume, was stronger now, deep in the fibers. He wiped. He sprayed his citrus cleaner. He wiped again. The scent lessened, but it didn't go away. It seemed to have become part of the material itself. Leo drove home, uneasy but paid. He hit the garage door remote. The Countess's headlights illuminated the blank wall. He got out and ran his hand across the trunk, checking for dust. That's when he saw it. On the cream leather of the back seat, exactly where the smudge had appeared and vanished, the color was subtly wrong. It was no longer a pure, sterile cream. It had a faint, almost imperceptible veining of deep gray, like a tiny, intricate root system running just beneath the surface of the hide. It looked vascular. The smell, the softness, and the veins. Leo spent the next day obsessively cleaning the Countess. He steamed the carpet, leather washed the seats, and used an industrial-grade ozone machine. The strange, sweet, metallic smell remained, a ghost clinging to the cabin air filter. He drove Wednesday night without incident. No strange pings. Just the usual bar crowds and airport runs. But the gray veining on the back seat leather seemed to have spread slightly, an area no larger than a coaster, but clearly present. When he pressed his finger into it, the leather felt subtly softer, lacking its usual taut resilience. It felt yielding. Wednesday passed into Thursday, and the text on the Uber app, the simple name Silas, appeared again at 3:19 a.m. Same location. Seacliff. Same destination. The Overlook. Leo felt a prickle of genuine fear, but the allure of the high, easy fare was too strong. He was also driven by a desperate, morbid curiosity to see what she would do next, and how the car would react. He accepted. Mrs. Silas was waiting, looking exactly the same, standing motionless in the fog. Her quiet greeting was the same. She wore the same dark coat. As she settled into the back, Leo felt the drop in temperature and the immediate return of the copper perfume scent. This time, he didn't try to hide his inspection. "I noticed something on the seat after our last trip, ma'am," Leo said, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. Mrs. Silas smiled, a tiny upturn of lips that didn't reach her bright, dark eyes. "Ah, the Countess has begun to internalize the route. You should take that as a compliment, Leo. You are a fine conductor of energy. It's starting to look stained. I've tried everything. It's not a stain, Leo. A stain is a wound. This is growth. The midnight grid leaves its mark on those who serve it well." Leo swallowed, the metallic scent now so strong it tasted like old blood on his tongue. As they drove, the city below them seemed to darken further. The streets Leo took felt narrower, the buildings pressing closer. He tried to turn on the radio for distraction, but the dial was locked. Then, without warning, a single, deep note, like a low cello string, vibrated through the speakers. "The Countess only plays what she feels," Mrs. Silas whispered. "And right now, she feels focused. She needs clarity for this trip." The note continued, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate his fillings. As they climbed higher, Leo noticed the interior wood trim, the dark walnut on the dash and doors, was also changing. Where the wood had been smooth and cool, it now seemed faintly damp, and the grain appeared to shift, creating patterns that looked suspiciously like eyes watching him from the corners of his vision. When they reached the Overlook turnaround, Mrs. Silas again made that strange, vanishing smudge on the door panel. This time, the gray veining leapt from the leather and spread in a quick, fractal pattern across the seat back and down to the floor mat. The center of the patch began to show a reddish-brown color, pulsing very subtly in the car's dome light. She stepped out. Before she disappeared, she turned back to Leo. "You are beginning to align with the infrastructure, Leo. You are a very important part of the delivery system now. Until next time." Leo sat frozen. He looked at the floor mat. It was a heavy, industrial-grade rubber mat he'd bought for easy cleaning. Now, the rubber was tacky and soft, covered in the reddish-brown substance. He touched it. It was warm and felt slick, like wet liver. He pulled his hand back, horrified, and the material stretched slightly, leaving thin, stringy residue on his fingertips. He slammed the car into reverse and peeled out of the Overlook, leaving the payment behind. He couldn't deal with the high fare, he only wanted distance. The organic machine. Over the next few days, Leo stopped driving. He parked the Countess in his garage and simply sat in his apartment, staring at the walls, terrified to look at the car, yet unable to stop thinking about the car's escalating transformation. He called mechanics, auto detailers, and even an exterminator, giving them vague descriptions of an unremovable organic residue and a weird, metallic sap. All of them either laughed or suggested he buy a new car. He finally went back to the garage on Saturday morning. The interior was almost unrecognizable. The cream leather seats, once his pride, were now entirely covered in the dark gray veining, which had merged and deepened into a mottled, almost reptilian texture. The original, soft surface was now covered in small, hard nodules, like scar tissue. When he touched it, the seat cushion gave with an uncomfortable amount of pressure, and he could feel a spongy, internal resistance that definitely wasn't foam. The seat felt like resting his hand on a sleeping, heavily muscled torso. The copper perfume smell was now overwhelming, a thick, cloying vapor. Worst of all was the dashboard. The elegant walnut trim was gone. In its place, thick, reddish-brown bark, deeply fissured, covered the console. The GPS screen was foggy, and the numbers displayed weren't coordinates, but a rapidly cycling countdown. Leo's personal phone rang. It was the Uber app, somehow managing to override his settings and notifications. Silas. 3 a.m. Seacliff. Urgent. A new detail popped up on the map. The destination was no longer the Overlook. It read, the Core. Leo didn't hesitate. He was past the point of quitting. He was the subject of an experiment, and the Countess was the petri dish. He had to finish the loop, if only to understand the terms of his surrender. He got behind the wheel. The steering wheel, wrapped in fine leather, felt strangely oiled and warm. As he turned the key, the engine didn't ignite with the familiar roar. Instead, there was a deep, guttural gasp, followed by a low, consistent thrum, less mechanical and more biological. The car was not starting. It was waking up. Leo put the car in reverse. As he backed out of the garage, the radio volume slammed to full blast, playing a classical piece he hated, Beethoven's Fifth. Da-da-da-dum. Stop it, he yelled, hitting the off button. The sound only got louder, vibrating the car's chassis. The sound wasn't coming from the speakers, it was coming from the engine block. He flew through the empty city streets, speeding toward Seacliff. The Countess felt alive, responsive to his fear, urging him faster. The car no longer felt like a separate entity. It felt like a heavy, external suit of armor he was wearing, and it was tightening around him. He was the driver, but the car was driving him. When he reached Mrs. Silas's gate, she was waiting. This time, she wasn't wearing a coat. She was dressed in a gown of dark, thick fabric that looked like dried, pressed moss. Around her neck, the silver key was gone, replaced by a necklace of small, hard, black nodules identical to those now covering the car's seat. She opened the back door herself. The moment she settled in, Leo felt a sharp, intense pain, a stabbing pressure in his upper spine, right at the base of his neck. Ah, the connection is complete, Mrs. Silas said, sounding satisfied. You feel it, don't you? The metal in your backbone. The integration of the pilot. Leo gasped, clutching the steering wheel. What have you done to my car? I have given it the structure it craved. The Countess was always meant to carry the burdens of the night. You, Leo, provided the steady current, the rhythm of the machine. I merely provided the final vessel integrity. Mrs. Silas tapped the control screen. The navigation system, covered in bark and fog, showed a route that defied reality. It was a single, wavering line, not following any known road, but pointing directly up the steepest hill in Seacliff, a hill that ended in a sheer cliff face. The core is not an address on your map, Leo. It is the center of the midnight grid. It is where the lines of the road intersect with the lines of time. Drive. The final route. Leo pushed the accelerator. The car didn't drive up the hill. It burrowed. The Countess's tires screeched, then found impossible traction. The front bumper dipped, and they were driving into dense earth, rock, and concrete. The headlights, now pulsing with a pale green light, illuminated a tunnel forming around them. The sound was a loud, wet tearing, as if the car's chassis was tearing through a continuous film of flesh. Dust, soil, and concrete chunks rained onto the hood, but they were immediately absorbed by the now rubbery, dark gray paint of the car. The Countess was not just driving through the tunnel. She was creating it, absorbing the resistance. Leo felt the spine pain intensify. It was a cold, deep ache that spread to his fingertips. His hands felt fused to the wheel. When he tried to flex his fingers, the wheel seemed to flex with him, the leather surface feeling like rough, living skin. "You are almost there," Mrs. Silas murmured from the back. "Do you see how much time you save by ignoring the system? By using your instincts. You don't need an algorithm, Leo. The road is now inside you." Leo looked down at his arm resting on the door panel. He pulled up his sleeve. Along the inside of his forearm, pale skin was covered in the same tiny, dark, oil-slick smudges that had marked the seat. They were sinking in, like ink spreading beneath the skin. "The payment isn't money, is it?" Leo whispered, his voice thin. "No, Leo. The payment is permanence. Every driver on the grid who refuses to log off, who chases the phantom surge, is eventually claimed. I offer them the chance to become a true part of the infrastructure. To drive without end, without need of sleep or food. You make them into cars." "No," she corrected, a soft, amused tone in her whisper. "I make them the drivers of the cars. The consciousness that runs the grid. You will feel no more loneliness, Leo. You will be integrated into the essential movement of the city." The tunnel abruptly ended. They burst out onto an impossibly vast, black plain. Above them, the sky was not black, but a deep, churning orange, and across the horizon ran a glowing, electric blue lattice, the structure of the midnight grid. The Countess stopped, idling perfectly. They were surrounded by thousands of other vehicles. But these weren't parked. They were standing upright, buried halfway into the black soil, their tires turning slowly, their engines breathing. They were all luxury cars, all perfectly maintained, all with that same, organic bark on the dash and the mottled, pulsing skin on the seats. And in the driver's seat of each car, faintly visible through the green pulsing windshield, was a silhouette, a seated figure, wearing a driver's uniform, eternally fused to the steering wheel. Leo saw the pale face of an old taxi driver he recognized, the proud profile of a long-dead livery cab owner, and the slumped form of a young, exhausted ride-share driver who had disappeared last year. Leo looked at his own reflection in the side mirror. His eyes were wide, but the pupils were surrounded by a sickly pale green glow, matching the light from his headlights. "Welcome to the Corps, Leo," Mrs. Silas said. She leaned forward, and Leo felt her cold breath on his neck, right above the spine pressure point. "Now, park the Countess and transfer your consciousness." She held out her hand. It was no longer the hand of an elderly woman. It was covered in the dark, bark-like hide, and its fingers ended in long, thick silver keys. The key she held was not to a door, but to his ignition. "Take this key, Leo. Turn off the engine for the final time. Then, you will be the heart of the Countess." Leo looked at the key. He looked at the endless rows of silent, breathing cars. He realized this was the final surge payment, his consciousness for the car's eternal life. But the Countess was his sanctuary, his one constant. He had polished her, protected her, but she had betrayed him, turning into a carnivorous parasite. His terror was replaced by a surge of pure, vengeful rage. "You won't have her," Leo hissed. "Not the Countess." He yanked his right hand free from the steering wheel, ripping his skin free from the now living leather. He felt a sharp, burning pain, and a dark fluid, oil mixed with blood, dripped onto the floor. With his free hand, he slammed the gear shifter out of park, past reverse, and into drive. "What are you doing?" Mrs. Silas's whisper turned into a screech, metallic and high-pitched. "I'm taking the cancellation fee," Leo roared. He stomped on the accelerator. The Countess, now an extension of his own enraged heart, surged forward, its biological engine roaring with a sound like tearing silk. He drove not toward the abyss or the grid, but directly toward the closest object, a half-buried black sedan. "The contract is absolute. You cannot destroy the vessel," Mrs. Silas shrieked, clawing at the back of his seat. Leo felt the pressure in his spine intensify, a blinding spike of pain as the car tried to stop him. He gritted his teeth and leaned into the wheel. He wasn't aiming to crash. He was aiming to break the connection. At the very last second, before impact, he wrenched the steering wheel left and rammed the car not into the sedan's body, but into its rear tire, using the solid weight of the Countess to shear the other vehicle's axle. The Countess shrieked, a sound from the engine that was unmistakably a woman's voice. The front end lurched violently, but the real damage wasn't external. The jarring impact was enough to violently sever the spinal connection. Leo felt a wet, tearing sensation at the base of his neck, and the internal pain vanished, replaced by cold numbness. The car stopped. The bark on the dash cracked. The green lights died. Mrs. Silas was gone. The back seat was empty, the leather now sticky with the reddish-brown fluid that was rapidly drying and hardening. The grid, the electric blue lattice in the orange sky, flickered and winked out, plunging the black plane into darkness. The hundreds of breathing cars around them stopped turning their wheels, freezing in place like statues. Leo sat in the silence, breathing raggedly. He had been thrown back into the real world. Logged off when Leo woke up, it was morning. He was sitting in the driver's seat of a wrecked car in an abandoned concrete quarry outside of Vallejo, 50 miles from San Francisco. The Countess was ruined. The front bumper was mangled, the headlights were shattered, and the hood was crumpled against the firewall. The engine was dead, smelling only of gasoline and scorched oil, normal smells. The interior, however, was worse. The organic bark had dried into brittle, dead wood. The mottled seats were cracked and hard, the nodules withered. The copper perfume smell was replaced by the acrid, honest scent of ozone and burnt electronics. The car was just a car again. A broken one. Leo got out, his body aching, his neck stiff and bruised. He felt strangely light, detached, as if he had shed a heavy, poisonous skin. He checked his pockets for his wallet and keys. He pulled out his personal phone. It was working. He checked the time. 8:45 a.m. The police would be here soon. As he waited, he remembered the last look at the car before the crash. He looked at the dead vehicle. There was a section of the firewall, near the front right wheel well, where the metal was deeply scored. Etched into the ruined frame, almost invisible, were thousands of tiny, overlapping names. They weren't scratches. They were signatures. Leo recognized his own name, written in a shaky script, Leo M. Vance. And next to it, written in the same hand, Alexander P. Cross. The driver from the midnight grid. They were all there. The names of every driver the Countess had consumed. He took one last look at his beloved car, his sanctuary, now a grotesque monument to failed work ethic. He dropped his keys into the dust. He had no car, no job, and no connection to the grid. He was finally free. He walked away from the quarry, toward the distant sound of the freeway. He started a new life, working a desk job, 9 to 5, predictable and safe. He rented a small, cheap apartment and bought a bicycle. He spent his nights reading, listening to the silence, and occasionally talking to Sarah, the long-suffering fiancée from his past life, now a distant, safe acquaintance. He was happy. He was free. But sometimes, when he sat alone in the quiet of his room, the stillness would be broken. It wasn't the sound of a phantom engine or a ghostly wiper blade. It was the quiet, persistent buzz of his personal phone. Leo never used the Uber app on this phone, but it was there, installed without his permission, deep in his system files. And sometimes, in the dead zone between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., the phone would light up, despite being muted, despite being turned off. The notification wouldn't show a map or a price. It showed only 2 lines of text, glowing with a faint, unsettling green light, the same color as the Countess's final headlights. Passenger. SILASDESTINATION. Pending realignment. And beneath that, the tiny, taunting message. Requesting driver. Leo would cover the phone with a heavy book, then cover the book with a blanket, but he could always feel the distant, quiet vibration. The steady, rhythmic beat of a silent car, idling, waiting for its next permanent pilot. He had uninstalled the car, but he could never quite uninstall the system. The grid was always running, and it knew his name. The end. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment and turn on notifications if you enjoyed the video so you never miss an upload.